Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This is a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dealing with Mikadono Sisters is a Breeze, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Another great, and sweet and very adorable and cute episode. Obviously, picking up where the last episode left off, Yu is with the Mikadono sisters at the festival, wants them to bond and everything, and they already kind of start off on a rocky start because Kazuki is immediately recognized and she gets mobbed by a whole bunch of her fans. It's interesting that like Miwa and Nico don't have to deal with that, but I think the nature of what they do and also just who they are doesn't translate to that. Even though they do have major fans, I think it's a little bit different considering Kazuki's in the acting field, so that's a little bit different from the martial arts field and the shogi field. Like that's it. Like they have their fans, but it's a different dynamic. Plus, Kazuki's different from her sisters. Like obviously she's taller and she's got that very prince aesthetic she's got going on, so she stands out a little more in the crowd. And it's interesting because her sister's takeaway, I think it was like Miwa specifically, it was like, oh, like she adores all the attention. It's like, no, it comes with its own burden because it's like she has to be always on. She has to be everyone's prince all the time. And it doesn't always allow her just to be herself, you know, in a way where it's like the shogi situation and the martial arts situation allows Nico and Miwa just to be themselves all the time. But every time we see Kazuki around people gather around her and she has to like present herself a certain way, so there is a little restriction in it. So I don't think she loves it as much as they think. She just knows like this is just the role of this is what I have to do. It comes with the territory. Which Yu is kind of sad about it because he's like, oh man, but I want them all to get together. I mean, at least Nico and Miwa are hanging out, but I want all three of them to hang out. But it's like, who am I to interrupt all that? Because if I do, that's kind of messed up. And you can even see like Kazuki looking over at Miwa and Nico. And I think it's the thing of, you know, because as the oldest, it's about to say, it's hard to say because we know, you know, Miwa's got pretty good memory. But, you know, you would think like Kazuki's the oldest. So she probably looks at that situation a little like, oh, they're my sisters hanging out. And even though we don't hang out, I think she was feeling like that FOMO, you know. And so when it's happening, they're hanging out and stuff, and you know, one girl falls because she's like, oh, look at them, like, yeah, she's like great and pretty and all that, but why are people panicking, like flipping out like this? So her sandal breaks and she's about to fall, and very much into Prince style, Kazuki comes over and grabs her like, hey, are you okay? I'll carry you so we can take you somewhere to get your sandal replaced so you're not walking on your feet. And she's like captivated, and it's just like, you know, other people are like, yeah, that's so unfair. And Yu has to follow behind, can't get too close. Well, you know, there would be too many questions being broached and stuff like that, because he'd also probably seem like a weirdo following them. But either way, while everyone was distracted, he snatches Kazuki away. And it's like, oh, here's some food. I know you haven't really had a chance to eat because you've been, you know, placating the crowd and stuff. But it's also like, she's like, yeah, I don't think you can keep bribing me with food. But he's like, okay, here's a Band-Aid. Because he's like, I noticed how you've been walking. So you've hurt your foot because of the sandal, right? And and she's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, no, let me see. And he takes her shoes and her sandals and socks off. And her feet are a little messed up. And for her, it's like, I'm the prince. Who am I to kind of ask for help? But he's like, even if you are a prince, you can be a princess every once in a while. Like, why is I asking for help such a bad thing? Like, you can play the role of the princess often. And she just kind of reluctantly goes like, fine, and gives him her foot and gets the Band-Aid. So shows up later on with her to the other two where they're playing the little catching the fish game, and she has to wear a mask because it keeps her from being seen. And I think it's interesting because Miwa and Nico had this perspective. They're like, yeah, you're usually frowning at us, yada yada, so on and so forth. But even in that moment, just for a quick second, you see her smiling behind the mask. But then she like shifts the mask behind her face so she can focus on the game. And Miwa continues to dominate in the game, and everyone else is kind of sucking at it. But while they're all gathered having fun, he's like, all right, while they're distracted, I got to go off and do something. I'm like, what are you going to do? So I thought like eventually like he found the game where they won the statue all those years ago. In fact, from what the guys running the competition said, basically no one's won it in 10 years. They're the last ones who's ever won it. So I thought maybe he was going to get them to recreate winning it, but it's like, well, they might know the same pathing, even though it's 10 years ago. Miwa has a really good memory, so, and that folds into this because like, the reason why they were able to conquer it is basically they used all three, like, right. Miwa mapped out the pattern of, like, knowing where to go, and most likely Nico carried her across with her brawn, and then, like, Kazuki is good enough to just easily follow behind them and keep in tandem with them in that regard. So it's like, yeah, all three sisters work together and were able to accomplish it pretty easily because they have to jump across these lily pads. But the thing is, like, it's almost, obviously it's a less darker version of it, but obviously, recency stuff's kind of got me thinking about, like, the bridge game from Squid Game, if you've seen Squid Game. So it kind of gave me that effect. Obviously, once again, less deadly. But yeah, people kind of bowed out the competition because the moment, I was wondering, like, oh, is it a one and done? Do you lose? But it's like, no, you can try as many times as you want, but no one bothers because it starts raining and you get dirty and muddy because you're falling into the water, and that's also making it more likely you're going to fall, because you're going to be slipping all over the mud. But Yu refuses to give up because he's like, this is too important. I need to win this so that the sisters can recreate that photo, because he's thinking, in his mind, it's like, if they can recreate that photo, that means they're going to be okay, like that they'll be back to repairing the relationship. And so he tries again and again and again, and in the final try, even though people are telling him to give up, he refused to, even though he's like, I'm not talented as they are, but I still because even the guys running are like, well, it's meant to be a luck game, not an effort game. But through effort, he won. He might not be able to individually stack up to any of the sisters individually, but he can put forth the effort. Might not have the talent, but I think once again, his talent is his determination. Almost like kind of like you take the Dan, not Dan, sorry, Danganronpa. I don't know how I went from how I mixed up Dan in my head with Danganronpa. Danganronpa. I don't know why I said Danganronpa. Danganronpa. Anyway, tangents and all that. Like with the ultimates and like usually like whether it's Hajime or Makoto, the whole ultimate lucky student thing. It made me kind of. Oh wait, no, that's not Makoto. That's not. It's not Hajime because you don't know what Hajime's ultimate is. Who was it? Nagato is who I was thinking of. I can't believe I had a brain fart like that. Sorry. Either way, it just kind of made me think about that. But like his ultimate ability is his determination. Either way, he makes it, and he's like, oh, let me go get the sisters. But by the time he gets back, it was already raining, so the festival's over, so people have already left. And for him, he's beating himself up because he's like, there I go again. This was supposed to be about them, but I kind of made it about me. Like, I got so focused on me and doing this that I wasn't there making sure they all had fun. So like, without me being there to kind of be the glue, they most likely all just went back to the hotel, and he just feels defeated. But then all three of them show up and like, yo, we were looking for you. Sadly, we don't have a fourth umbrella because they sold out, but you can share with us. Well, they say it all at the same time, which he's like, I didn't hear you because you were all talking at the same time, but they were all offering to, put him under the umbrella, which is really cute. And so now they're going to make their way back to the hotel, which they kind of skipped over. I was like, are you not going back to the photo thing? But we get resolution to that. It does happen in that time frame. We just didn't get to see it in the moment it happened. But anyway, they make their way back to the hotel. They're all bathing and stuff. They initially do a rock, paper, scissors. I love that it's like the loser of rock, paper, scissors has to take you. And he's like, oh, I'm a penalty? But it ends up being Nico, who's like, flustered about it because she's like, her heart's beating like crazy. She's like, it feels like I ran a marathon, and it's just like, what's going on there? Like, even now, like, even though the moment's passed, I'm here sitting in the bath, like, I'm still feeling it. And she's like grabbing her chest and pushing on it. It's more meant to be about her heart, but from Miwa and Kazuki's perspective, it's like, oh, she's like trying to become a real woman, like her boobs and stuff, but it's like, oh, you can't stack up to me. And it's like, yeah, her siblings seem to be on a larger side in that capacity. So, but that's not even what Nico's thinking about. I don't even know if that's even an insecurity that she has. That's like the like stereotypical cliche that of a character type like Nico, that she would be like conscientious about her figure. But as a martial artist character, I don't. Well, she is in that capacity, but like in the like a curvy angle of things. I don't know if that's something she's even considered, or we haven't really, dived into that. But after they take their bath, they run into Yu, who is still filthy because he was so busy, once again, planning so much around them, he never considered booking a room for himself. It's like, that's also his blind side because, once again, he has no confidence in himself. So he always, typical shonen protagonist where I'm like, I'm going to put everyone above me because I'm not important. What's more important is them, because it's like, and I think this is a lesson he's going to learn. And once again, I think it's an important thing. Like I've only seen one protagonist like that I'm like deeply, my favorite protagonist really go through like the whole angle of, I put people before me because I care about people. I can't even fathom that they would care about me. But he's like, yeah, I want us to be a family. So he's like, he kind of deals with them kind of like treating him kind of like crap sometimes, or belittling him a little bit. But at the end of the day, for him, it's like, I'm so used to that, and I belittle myself and I look down upon myself, so it's fine. But it's like, he can't even fathom that they might care about him. And I think that's going to be a part of his journey, realizing like, love is, it's a two-way street. So you can care for them, but also know that they do care about you, even if they put up these fronts and pretenses like they don't. Kazuki's the one that invited him to kind of stay in the room with them, and it's kind of like, yeah, fine, like we have to, you live with us, so it kind of be crappy on our part, it's up to us as like the elites to kind of look down on the common folk. You're like a dog hanging out in the rain. We should, help you with an umbrella, But he's like, yeah, I appreciate it. But the thing is, it's a smaller room. They can make do at the house because it's a bigger house. They have plenty of room where like they can cohabitate the same area because they rarely would run into each other because they just go to the rooms, do their own thing. But the problem is it's a smaller room, and so they're bumping into each other. He bumps into Kazuki, and she's kind of nervous. He goes to get a bathrobe, so he's pretty close to Nico, and she's flipping out. He was near Miwa when she was like, oh, there might be some extra robes here, and him beside her, almost brushing next to her, makes her flip out, and they're just like, oh my god, this is too much for just 4 people to be in. And he's like, oh, I'm going to take a bath. You guys just rest and enjoy yourself. They're like, how are we supposed to rest under these circumstances? Which is so interesting because usually it'd be on the back foot where you're just like, oh my god, it's the male protagonist that's flipping out about it, and the girl might be stressed about it too, and the guy character, but for him to be like coasting because he isn't conscious of himself in this situation. He's not thinking like, yo, I'm a boy, they're girls, so they're a little conscientious about it, because he thinks like they're above me, they don't care about me, I'm insignificant. So that's why I'm saying it's playing into all this. So neither of them can sleep, none of them can sleep except for you, because he's comfortable. I just thought it was interesting because I thought it would impact their performances. Turns out it doesn't, but we'll get to that in a second. But Yu is the one that's laying on the floor where his spot is, and he's happy because they were able to recreate the photo, and he was happy about that. But he also looked for the original photo, and he got left with a note saying like, yo, I took this back. So he still doesn't know whose it is. We find out it is in fact Miwa's. It makes a lot of sense because Miwa's the one that was thinking about the summer festival last episode, and she's the one that specifically thought about them looking. I mean, to be fair, that was when they were there, and she's the one that's like, I shouldn't be thinking about that. So probably it made the most sense because I felt like it was implied to be her, but I was like, maybe that's just a little too obvious. But it's like, no, it is what it is. So, but Yu's not too caught up about it. It's like, well, they took it back as long as they want it. That's perfectly fine because now they've got this photo. Because it's like the photo's also supposed to be like, if you keep it as a wallpaper, it's supposed to be good luck. So we know, I don't know if he probably did send it to all 3 of them. We saw Miwa definitely has it as her background, but I'm assuming Yu probably is going to keep, I wonder if Yu kept it as his background. Would that look translate to the others, or did Nico and Kazuki as well? But either way, because Yu comfortably goes to sleep, the trio are like still awake, being like, oh my god. And they kind of reflect upon some stuff where it's like, they think back to coming here all those years ago. And, it's interesting because, like, Kazuki's like, yo, like, he was crazy for picking out that kimono for you, Nico, but you did look good. And she's like, I don't know if you feel this way currently, but back in the day, you used to like pretty things like that. And they also bring up Kazuki where it's like, you were smiling and then you were having fun because you put up a front when you're around other people, because even they're like, oh, we're usually seeing like your very stern or sour face, but you were legitimately having fun. They even bring up like, oh, they had the shooting game where Miwa was like, oh yeah, I was so good, I was at my peak. It's like, no, every time you shot, Kazuki was secretly shooting behind you to make you feel better because you used to flip out every time you'd lose, which is ironic because she was the one that was winning the game and they were saying that she was cheating. So maybe she probably has gotten better at games considering, shogi and all that. That probably transfers over to her skills in other games as well. But yeah, the whole conversation of like, right, we never really, yeah, because they were saying like she's pretty much hasn't changed how she is about games and stuff like that. But they realize like, right, we always individually go about our ways, even though we live in the same house, we never really hang out. And so it becomes a situation of them being like, it's because of him and his nosiness and meddlingness. But at the same time, they're very appreciative. Literally, the last line is them all saying thank you, And even Miwa fawning over like him recreating the photo. And it's just like, yeah, it meant a lot for her to kind of have like, yeah, like it feels good that it's like, oh, it's not just this distant memory anymore. It's like me and my sister still hang out and we have that connection here. So just thought that was kind of a beautiful resolution and closing to all of that. And then finally, off screen, they basically all killed it in their respective situations. And he's like, wow, they were all having fun. I thought like, oh man, they're doomed. It's like, no, that's prodigies for you. They come out the clear winners. And then finally, we also get the outro, which is Miwa, which is super adorable and super cute. I love that. Once again, I just think it's so neat. They all got their own theme song, and then there's also like the animated aesthetic for each of the outros is different because hers is kind of like very like stylized and like almost like cut out. This like cut out style like animation of how like I don't know what you'd call that animation style, where it's like cardboard cutout type of aesthetic. I just called it a cutout aesthetic, but it's interesting. And even the last shot of that outro is a photo of all four of them, you included together. So I thought that was just kind of neat. And then finally we get our little post-credit scene when they were looking for you. So it's like, oh, let's put out a word to like some of your fans and Kazuki. That probably is like, and gives like a very vague description. So I was like, you gotta be more specific. And she's like, well, he has this like very nice smile. And she's like, yeah, that smile he never shows you guys. And then I think it's Miwa that's like, well, he prepares like very specific like snacks for me at midnight and stuff like that. Stuff he doesn't do for you guys because you're on your diets. And then Nico's like, well, he always makes sure to get me protein right before I, run out because he's thoughtful and kind. They're saying all these nice things about him. And then they all blush and they're like, we can't do that. We have to find him on our own. We can't use any of those descriptors to describe you because that's too embarrassing. It's such an adorable ending. So I was like, it just kind of a nice thing that you will never be aware of, just them all how they do view him. They do see, even though they will outwardly talk about the negatives about him, they do recognize and appreciate the positive angles that even he will never recognize in himself. So I just thought that was just neat. I can't express enough like how excited I get when like new episodes of the show drop. I'm legitimately like it's such an adorable show that it's like I'm so excited to see where things go next. Probably the last show that like just there's plenty of animes I watch where I'm just like, oh, I'm so excited to see where it goes, but from like such a cute, adorable angle. The most recent one will probably be Mikadono. Sorry, not Mikadono, because this is Mikadono. I'm sorry. I meant Madaka Kora Iwa is impervious to my charms. That was probably like the same energy because it's in the same vein of like a comedic, a romantic comedic series that I'm like, I'm always so interested to see where things go. And once again, I'm a sucker for romance and young love, and it's so adorable, and this whole notion of family and trying to find your part and place in everything, and his relationships with the sisters and their individual relationships with him, as well as their relationship as a family with him. So it's so fascinating that I'm always so excited to see where the story goes, because once again, I've never read the manga, so I don't know where it's going to go and what shenanigans and certain circumstances and situations they'll find themselves in, and how what he'll kind of learn from it and apply, and how that will, like I said, relate with the sisters individually and as a whole. So, but yeah, I've run my mouth off long enough. I do apologize. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.